Welcome to the Get Fit Guy's quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield, and I'm the Get Fit Guy. In previous Get Fit Guy episodes, I've discussed things like natural remedies for soreness, how to structure your post-workout activities and meals to lower soreness levels, and some of the best ways to bounce back quickly from a workout. But it's still extremely common for fitness enthusiasts, triathletes, marathoners, weightlifters, and other people who want to push through soreness, pain, or injury to get through a workout or competition to take ibuprofen, Advil, and other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications, or NSAIDs, prior to or during physical activity. So in today's episode, you're going to learn whether you should take ibuprofen, Advil, or other NSAIDs before exercise to reduce muscle soreness and pain, or if there may be health or safety risks of anti-inflammatories during physical activity. So let's first look into how NSAIDs actually work. They're typically taken for inflammation or pain and include things like aspirin, ibuprofen, which includes the brand names Advil and Motrin, naproxen sodium, which is Aleve, and ketoprofen, which is Arudis KT. Now, when you take NSAIDs, you prevent your body from manufacturing what are called prostaglandins. And these are natural substances that are involved in mechanisms like protecting your stomach lining or regulating blood pressure, and also calling in inflammation to an area that has been injured, which can result in pain, redness, swelling, and discomfort as that natural inflammatory process takes place. Now, because prostaglandins serve functions in addition to simply causing that inflammation you're trying to get rid of, anti-inflammatories can cause stomach upset or gastrointestinal bleeding. And while the risk of stomach irritation or bleeding certainly increases with long-term use of NSAIDs, many exercising individuals simply pop these pills every now and again, for example, to reduce post or pre-workout soreness, or to be able to push through pain to complete a competition like a marathon. Now, although studies published since 2005 have investigated the safety of NSAIDs before exercise, my initial reason for recording this particular episode was based on a study that was just released this week entitled Aggravation of Exercise-Induced Intestinal Injury by Ibuprofen in Athletes, and I'll link to this in the show notes. And in this study, 9 healthy and trained men were studied on 4 different occasions. 1, taking a standard dose of 400 milligrams of ibuprofen twice prior to a bike workout. 2, cycling without any ibuprofen. 3, taking 400 ibuprofen twice at rest. And finally, resting without any ibuprofen intake. In each of these cases, researchers measured small intestinal damage through monitoring something called plasma intestinal fatty acid binding protein. They also measured urinary excretion of special sugar probes that they gave to these men, and these sugar probes are able to determine the amount of gastrointestinal permeability, which is basically a sign that the gut is becoming more leaky. So what did the researchers find? While both ibuprofen consumption and working out both resulted in increased fatty acid binding protein levels, which reflected small intestinal injury, levels were significantly higher after cycling with ibuprofen than after cycling without ibuprofen. In addition, gut permeability or leakiness also increased, especially after cycling with ibuprofen, which resulted in a loss of gut barrier integrity. In addition, the amount of intestinal injury from ibuprofen and gut barrier dysfunction were extremely well correlated. So based on this study, it can be concluded that exercise slightly aggravates your small intestine, and ibuprofen turns this into a significantly more risky problem. I can't sum it up any better than the researchers who concluded that, quote, NSAID consumption by athletes is not harmless and should be discouraged. So, as mentioned earlier, other studies have been performed on NSAID use before or during exercise. One study found that taking 400 milligrams of ibuprofen 4 hours before exercise reduced soreness, but didn't actually prevent muscle cell injury, which is kind of concerning since this means that ibuprofen could mask pain, but at the same time it could lead to increased risk of injury as you push through the muscle damage. In this study, researchers measured what's called creatine kinase, or CK, a protein that muscle cells release when they're injured. Other studies have found that NSAID use during long events like a marathon or a triathlon actually decreases kidney function, which can lead to very dangerous issues during exercise, including a decreased ability to properly regulate your sodium and electrolyte status and your hydration levels, And this becomes especially dangerous in the heat, in which there are already a great amount of stressors placed on the kidneys. And this extra stress can create a high risk of long-term kidney damage or kidney failure. One of the most eye-opening studies on ibuprofen use during exercise occurred in research performed during the Western States Trail Running Race. That's a popular and pretty grueling 100-mile race. In this study, runners were split into 3 groups. One group had no ibuprofen intake. One group took 600 milligrams of ibuprofen one day before and then on race day. And one group took 1,200 milligrams of ibuprofen one day before and on race day. So that group that was taking the higher dose of ibuprofen allowed researchers to see if there's a dose response, meaning whether a more pronounced effect is seen if more ibuprofen is taken. So this study found that both of the ibuprofen groups had significantly higher levels of markers for severe muscle damage, including what would be called C-reactive protein, plasma cytokine, and macrophage inflammatory protein, all markers of muscle damage. And this effect increased with higher amounts of ibuprofen intake. Ironically, the race time, the post-workout soreness, and the rating of perceived exertion, or how hard people felt like the race was not affected at all by taking ibuprofen, which means that A, ibuprofen didn't help at all, and B, ibuprofen caused greater inflammation and muscle damage compared to not taking it. So when should you take ibuprofen? Well, you should always, of course, discuss the use of medication with a licensed medical professional, but you should also make sure your physician hears this episode or reads this article over at quickanddirtytips.com so that he or she is aware of the potential dangers of combining ibuprofen with exercise, especially in the heat. If you're not exercising, and especially if you're not exercising for long periods of time in hot conditions, and you must temporarily shut down pain so that you can, for example, get through the day, anti-inflammatory medications can be a real lifesaver. For example, on a recent vacation, my wife was only able to enjoy herself by shutting down toothache pain with 1,200 milligrams of ibuprofen a day. However, if she would have decided to go do a triathlon or run 10 miles or hit the gym for a couple hours, I would have been very concerned about her gut and her potential for muscle damage. I would have told her the same thing as I'm going to tell you right now. You shouldn't use NSAIDs to push through pain during a workout. Instead, wait until you're better or find other options to decrease soreness. If you have more questions about whether you should take ibuprofen, Advil, or other NSAIDs before exercise, then join the conversation over at facebook.com/getfitguy. And until next time, this is the Get Fit Guy asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.